Let's just set the template here for our discussions this morning. We should be on local government administration in Nigeria. How to free these local government councils from the apron strings of the states is one of the major thrusts of the current attempt to amend the constitution. The belief is that the local government councils, as contemplated by the makers and framers of the constitution, is that they should serve as the third tier of government, fully autonomous and with their own mandates. Last week, the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum and Governor of Rivers State, Right Honorable Rotimi Chibuike Amechi, lashed out at those clamoring for the independence and full autonomy of local governments. Amechi declared in a rather harsh tone that suggests that the governors, using their enormous powers, will stop the attempts to free the councils. Amechi declared that nowhere in the world is federalism premised on a three-tier of government, but rather is always between a federal and then state governments. Many have since joined issues with the governor on this. On Tuesday this week, a group took the matter to a higher level when it launched the Safe Local Government Council Autonomy Group. We will be examining all of the issues around local government administration in Nigeria in our discussions. Let me quickly introduce the guests. As I said, Honorable Ngozika Ihoma is joining us for discussions this morning. Honorable Ihoma is Executive Secretary, Legislative Watch. He's also the coordinator, Safe Local Government Council Autonomy Group. It's a coalition of civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations, and some professional associations as well. Good to see you, Honorable Ihoma.
Good morning and Happy New Year to Nigerians.
Happy New Year to you too. It's our first meeting this year, so it's my place to say Happy New Year. Really. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Honorable Ken Chikere is joining us for discussions this morning. Honorable Ken Chikere is a member of House of Representatives and is the member representing Port Harcourt Federal Constituency 1. Honorable Ken Chikere is also a former Attorney General of Rivers State. Good to see you, sir.
Good morning.
Dr. Emeka Okengwu is also joining us for discussions this morning. Dr. Okengwu is a development and management consultant.
Good morning, Vega.
Good to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
All right, sir. Okay, we are back to a familiar issue this morning. First of all, Honorable Ihoma, what is that now? Save Local Government Council Autonomy Group. The local governments, are they in danger? Why do we need to save them?
Once more, good morning, Nigerians. As of today, as I speak to you, 510 local governments out of 768 local governments in the Constitution, plus the 6 area councils, are being governed by caretaker committee, interim management, head of HPM, and so many other foreign names that are not in the Constitution.
Strange names, really, that are unknown to the Constitution.
Good. And I think the National Assembly and Mr. President have not done Nigerians any favor because it amounts to invoking the state of emergency in all those areas. Because Section 7 of the Constitution said that these local governments must, because he used the word shall, be governed by democratically elected chairmen and councillors. As I speak with you, they are not being governed in that manner. And Mr. President, who swore to defend the Constitution, the National Assembly members who swore to defend the Constitution are watching, looking. Benga, the local government is non-existent.
That's why you want to save them?
Yes.
Okay.
Having been a victim of both laws made by the National Assembly and the executive at the federal level, laws made by the governors at the State Assembly and their governors at the state level. What we're asking is that as long as this Constitution made provision that there will be a third tier of government and made provision for them to have functions in the first schedule, and equally gave funds in Section 162 sub 3 and 8, these things must be implemented now to save Nigeria.
Honorable Chikere, it's an irony, really, that this has gone on for this long. 520 out of 768 councils, and of course the 6 area councils in Abuja, which also have the status of local governments.
No,
they don't.
They're not.
Okay.
They're not.
But they get subvention. They get
illegally. That is part of the fraud of the federal government, which I will explain.
All right. Yes, I was on the point really that how could this level of brigandage be going on when we have people like you who have sworn to defend the spirit and the letter of the Constitution? How could this be going on? There are states in Nigeria, out of these 36 states, where local government councils have not, democratically elected local government councils have not been in place since 1999. Anambra takes that prize. And we are looking on as if this is not something serious.
Well, first of all, I agree that local governments should be what the Constitution says they should be. They should be elected. Where I come from, the local governments are elected. Now, before we get to the National Assembly, we should take the matter from the state, from the local government, and then to the state. If what we say is happening has happened in Anambra over these years, has happened
since 1999, the
question would be, what has the local governments in Anambra done? What has the state House of Assembly done before you get to the National Assembly? Because I come from River State, and in River State, over time, since 1999, the local governments have been elected. Okay? So, speaking honestly, I would not know. But I would support an NGO like
the safe,
yes,
safe local government council autonomy group
is collating all these bits of information, knowing where and the places where there is this breach, and then profiling the solution. And if that solution would come from the National Assembly, I give my word that I will be in support.
Why will it not come from the National Assembly? Because we have put it on the template of constitutional amendment.
We are still on constitutional amendment.
That means in the National Assembly you are thinking that there's something you can do.
We are not done with the constitutional assembly.
Yeah, but the thinking is that there's something the National Assembly can do.
Yes.
Okay.
To the extent that if it means a re-emphasis of the constitutional provision, because like he said, it is already there in the Constitution, yes, that local government should be by elected representatives. Okay. Now, if there is a breach of that, we probably find a better word to explain what is there so that the breach would cease.
Okay. Dr. Okengwu, what's your position on this? Do you subscribe to the belief that the constitutional provision as regards the creation and administration of local government in Nigeria is not strong enough, it's not clear enough, having used the word shall?
Yes, probably.
Are we saying that is not clear enough as to its intention?
Yes, Benga, but I think probably what you should do is to be able to look at it a little bit more holistically, and probably look at the issues that have now created, these challenges that we have. And if you're looking at the local government administration and local government system, you're able to come with 4 clear issues. You have, clear political issues, clear legal issues, clear personal issues, and even, if you may, religious issues. And first and foremost, let me also correct an impression. Anambra State is not the first guilty person. The Shagari administration ran without the local government.
Where?
Go back to
what,
history.
What did the 1978
Beautiful.
79.
79.
No, 78.
The same position.
Okay, sorry, 1979.
The same position.
The same constitution. Okay. Shagari ran the local government system with what they call the sole administrators. So you see, if we go into history, we can begin to now unravel even what the issues right now are. I remember again that, let me even not come to the 1976 local government reform that was driven by the military. Let's go to the 2003 Ndayoko, committee, and what led to the establishment of our committee. Remember that they now found out that in the Constitution, the National Assembly had the powers to make laws, for the local government. And at the same time, the Constitution also gave the state assemblies the same powers to also do the same thing. And it was that clash that now led the both of them to go to the Supreme Court. And then what created it? What created it was that when they were not, because the Constitution didn't now give any defined tenure to local governments. When they now finished the elections and they needed an extension, they now went to the National Assembly, and National Assembly granted that extension, which was now taken to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court now said that the Constitution did not empower the National Assembly, to now start granting extensions. But the political thing, like I told you, now kicked in. The governors now found out. And remember again, that you see people, I don't know, I think I was reading in one of his papers where one of his senators was saying that, the governors forum, was going to truncate democracy or something, or going to, I don't know how he put it. But again, it's also important that we remind Nigerians that it was actually the governors forum that actually came together to now try to now push for that thing to be passed, so that the governors could now, now remove the powers of making laws from the National Assembly and leave it at the level of the state government, which is why up to date, that's
what we have now.
So until you are able to get that, probably as we move on to the program, we might need to go back a little bit into history.
But is it wrong, or has the Constitution created a problem?
Yes.
By saying in one part that the system of local government is hereby guaranteed, and stop there, and then give the power for local government administrations to make laws for the operation and existence of local governments to the different states.
Unfortunately, he didn't stop there. What he did was that the same powers he gave to the National Assembly was the same powers he gave to the State Assembly. So the governors were now using the powers based on what the Constitution said to be able to now start, doing what they were doing at the state level.
Yeah, but the Constitution didn't ask the National Assembly to make laws for the operations
please, let them read it. It's clear. It's the same thing.
No, let me help you.
Okay.
The only law required by the Constitution for the National Assembly to make, it could be found in Section 7, subsection 6A of this Constitution. And it says that the National Assembly shall make provisions for statutory allocation of public revenue to local government councils in the Federation. That is the law, statutory revenue, which is already in the Revenue Act. Now B says the House of Assembly of a state shall make provisions for statutory allocation of public revenue to local government councils. This comes as a matter of the 10% IGR of the state as captured in Section 162, sub 7, which is part of what we formed with the joint. After the creation of the Federal National Assembly, then their own assembly of the 10%, the two of them forms the joint account, joint fund that goes into Section 162, sub 6.
But there's no confusion there.
All right? No, so let me help Doc. There is no confusion.
Exactly.
Because the only thing required is this issue of funding.
Exactly.
Right? And the funding are to come from two sources. The Federation account, being managed by the National Assembly.
Exactly. And the law that the National Assembly can make will have to relate to that aspect.
Now,
if you want to change the revenue allocation tomorrow,
and
say that state councils should get more than they are getting now, or get less than they are getting now.
Yes.
I think that's what that section is.
Good. So outside that,
it doesn't relate to the management, day-to-day management, issue of tenure, and all of that.
I love that word think. I love that word think. You see, I love that word thing. And the Attorney General here might be able to help us, throw more light. You see, when you're making laws, and these laws are a little bit ambiguous, like my brother has said, he thinks it's supposed to be.
No. That's the pronouncement of the Supreme Court.
No, wait. Now,
clear.
If you do not capture the 10% there, the 10% IGR, I remember that the IGR you're talking about 10% is no longer even 10% now.
That is what it is.
Huh?
It has not even been paid.
10% of
it has not even been paid.
If you look at it, there was another time they were now talking about moving that percentage to about 25%, 10% coming in, and even the IGR, it was supposed to be first and foremost the 10% of the total income of the state, before they now reduced it to 10% of the IGR.
No, the total has been interpreted as, because first of all,
the total income of a state,
the local government
income of the state, because the total income of the state includes his own share
of the federation account, which
after you have given to councils, you can't expect the councils again to share from the state.
No, IGR. That's what I'm saying.
So it's about IGR.
Yes, it's about IGR.
It's about what accrues to the state as internally generated revenue.
Okay, so what of these states now that are not viable?
Everyone.
No, it's not a different thing.
Everyone is viable.
There's no state that
no has declared insolvency. All of them are viable, because I have seen the budget of almost all the state state.
Vis-a-vis the IGR?
No, yes, Daniel. They have quoted them. Those states is talking about getting close about almost 20 million.
All of them talk about it in their budget presentation.
It is in their budget.
It is in their budget.
So what we're demanding now is
from
1999, they must give us the 10% to local government.
You see, when you're looking at a state like probably Zamfara,
leave them alone.
Why should you leave them alone? Are they not Nigerians?
They have
you are looking at a state that has oil and gas. It don't has oil and gas. So why are we not looking at this?
There is gold being mined illegally in Zamfara state, if you don't know. That's gold.
I actually don't want us to go off course.
Okay.
Let me quickly take you up on one issue, because we addressed it previously and I failed to take you up on it.
Yes.
The status of the area councils.
Good.
I said that they enjoy the same status as local governments, which is why they are saying anywhere you see a reference to local government is the 600 and something local governments and the 6 area councils in the. It's just a question of nomenclature.
Just like I said.
But you said it's not.
In 2002, the Supreme Court made a pronouncement.
2002?
Yes, in 2002.
In which case is that?
In the case of AG Federation and AG Abia State, it has to do, literally called a resource control suit. And that one of the issues that came up for adjudication was the status of the area council. And it's here. They gave this judgment and said, the Federal Capital Territory is not a state or a local government in a state. It therefore cannot qualify for distribution from the federation account. Nor are the area councils in the Federal Capital Territory, as they are not local governments in a state, as provided in Section 1 of 3 of the 1999 Constitution. This is the Supreme Court pronouncement since 2002.
Was that one of the issues the court was to decide in that?
Yes, it was. It was one of the issues. 1% of the federation account was being given to FCT for
its councils.
For its funding. Okay. And the 6 area councils were getting funds. Part of the 20.6% of the funds meant for the 7 state local governments were being given to part of it to them. And the Supreme Court made it clear that Section 1 of 3 is very, very obvious. Who and who should come to the federation account? Federal government, state government, local government, full stop. Mind you, FCT is called Ministry of Federal Capital Territory. Being administered by minister. Area councils, as of today, remains parastatals of the FCT. They should be manned by a executive secretary and not by elected. The election that is being proposed is a crass illegality, which is part of the game plan of the National Assembly, not to lead Nigerians aright, because they cannot claim ignorance of this judgment.
Honorable Chikere, now this is something I need to quickly take you up. Are you aware of this judgment? Because if this judgment exists the way he said it, the Supreme Court, and he said it's a Supreme Court judgment, that the FCT is not to be treated as a state in terms of revenue allocation, and neither are the area councils to be treated as local governments in terms of revenue sharing.
No, but the question,
if we are aware of this, how come we have not obeyed the Supreme Court?
The question we have to ask ourselves sitting here is, does the area councils,
do they get the
allocations as the states get? I think he has to answer that question.
Do you know whether they
do.
Whether they get from FAC?
Yes, they do. And I have evidence of them here. These are the revenue profiles brought by the National Canadian's office. And I'll quickly go to 2008, which is towards the end, because it's from 1999. The last month is November of 2000 and October. September shared in October. And this is the area councils are here. Collecting money. This is FCT and these area councils.
They collected money
in August 2008, shared in September 2008. FCT area councils alone got 1,058,815,227 naira 29 kobo illegally.
What of the FCT?
They are not entitled to it. The FCT got money, another illegal fund from the federation account, because they skewed the operators in the FAC skewed this to deceive Nigerians. They have been getting money, and they are here. You can see them. FCT here got 2.96 billion FCT here as part of federal government. Instead of coming to the Consolidated Revenue Fund, to the National Assembly to ask for fund, they equally got money from the federation account. It is here, it is obvious. They got the one of this month released yesterday.
Well, I think I might need.
These are very interesting issues.
Yeah, they are very interesting issues.
Yes.
I think we might look to also look at the structural issues. First and foremost, in looking at this judgment, what it is I think we might be interested in, first and foremost, who instituted the suite.
Does it matter?
No, I'm coming.
Abia State Attorney General versus Attorney General of the Federation.
Please, I'm coming. Because, you see, in going to institute a suit,
yes,
what you should be asking for after that suit, after that judgment, was to now ask for the dissolution of the local government areas. Because what it simply meant is that by this judgment that he has proven now, somebody needed, because these were area councils that were brought into force by law. So the only way you can also now,
yes,
you needed
but
to...
did that law say that they should get money illegally from where they shouldn't get money?
You see, the moment you're a local government, the moment you're classified as a local
government...
Wait, I'm
they
coming.
said they were not classified as local government.
I said, what I'm saying is this. The moment they are classified, they are written down in government status as local governments, which is what we've called them.
But they are not written down as local government. They are written down as area councils.
Area councils.
Yes.
Okay, they're written down as area councils.
Yes.
Yes.
And in a different schedule.
Yes.
In this constitution.
Yes.
They're in a different schedule from where the seven state governments are.
Please, Ngozi, let's clarify this.
Yes.
Because, I mean, let's be able to now run away from ambiguity. Mm-hmm. We need to find out the interpretation of a council in the document that they are going to be operating with. Because that interpretation actually now shows you the kind of funding mechanism that they qualify for.
Yes.
If we don't get that interpretation...
Even if it is there, and I think Honorable Chikere here, being a lawyer, should also be able to answer this question. Yes. Even if they are there, listed as area councils, yes, my understanding of how the process works is that once an arm of government goes to the Supreme Court to seek interpretation of a statute, or interpretation of any provision of the Constitution, whatever interpretation the Supreme Court gives it is the interpretation. And it is binding on all authorities, all agencies, everybody. Isn't that the procedure?
I agree with you. The difficulty I have, you see, is that
in accepting that this actually happens.
Much as I align myself with Ngozi's position concerning local governments, some of it, I believe that we need to walk from step 1 to step 2. Now, the document he's showing us, and I say so with respect, dates back to 2004, 2008. I'm coming. I saw it. Okay? Now, the question we're asking, I wasn't in the National Assembly then. The question I'm asking is, has this judgment, has it been given effect? Because over time, the National Assembly, this is the 7th Assembly, okay? Has it been given effect? And if it has not, we need to find why it has not been given effect. But I continue to question, I continue to question his position that these area councils still get allocation, okay?
When was that judgment given?
That was on April 5, 2002.
So if the judgment was given in 2002, and as of 2008, they still got money, that means today, they still got money. And he just said here that
they got money yesterday.
They got money yesterday.
Yesterday.
Now, can't we also situate all of this in the same situation that we were talking about before? That the Constitution provides that in the local governments of Nigeria, the system of government that is allowed is that of democratically elected leaders. And that has not happened in 550 or so councils. And we keep quiet. Even those of us who are in public office, who have sworn to defend the letters and spirit of the Constitution, people like you, again I say people like you, couldn't really have been the same thing that, the Supreme Court just spoke is nothing. Isn't that how we have implemented democracy? Because my understanding of the position of the Supreme Court as the last court of resort, and as a court that is an interpretative court. In some other countries, they call it policy court. Is that once there's a dispute as to what does the lawmaker mean by this provision, and once the Supreme Court justices, they are oracles. Once they speak that this is how this thing is, that is the law. You have to read that law. the way the Supreme Court has interpreted it.
Now, Benga,
You know,
section
but
section 229 of this constitution made a categorical statement, and this is written in black and white and English language. It said, the provision of this constitution shall apply to the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, as if it were one of the states of the Federation, and accordingly, A, all the legislative powers, the executive powers, and the judicial powers vested in the House of Assembly, the governor of a state, and the cost of state shall respectively vest in the National Assembly, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and in the course, which by virtue of the foregoing provisions are course established for the Federal Capital Territory. Now, this were where people, as if it was a state, was where they got it wrong. Now, the Supreme Court in 2002 knocked them off completely.
Read down. Please read down.
Now, okay, B.
Read down. Because that was my argument.
B. Okay. All the powers referred to in paragraph A of this section shall be exercised in accordance with the provisions of this constitution. And C, the provisions of this constitution pertaining to the matters aforesaid shall be read with such modifications and adaptations as may be reasonably necessary to bring them into conformity with the provisions of this section. Now,
is that not where you see the interpretation of
this? This is clear.
That's now, the Benga, if you don't,
is that not where you see the interpretation of the
if you don't have this background now,
yes.
If you don't have this background now, first and foremost, what Ngozi has read here is very clear. That in absence of
clear provisions,
no, I'm coming, sir, that in absence of a state governor, the president and the National Assembly now presents or should present the budget of the FCT and the councils. This is the simple thing is written here. That's why I'm saying to you that it is important because there are two things we're talking about here. Yeah. First and foremost, we're talking about the structure. Yeah. And secondly, we're talking about the funding.
Yes.
We must be able to differentiate the both of them.
But this one didn't say anything
about
for
the funding thing, which is why I say that the constitution is a little bit ambiguous on these issues. Yes. But Ngozi's position on saying the Supreme Court has said you don't fund these people from first charge. That is his position.
No, it's not his position. Because what he just read said will be subject to how it is interpreted.
I am coming.
And the only authority that can interpret
is the Supreme Court.
I am coming, Benga. We're only talking about funding here. We didn't say you shouldn't fund the local government. But we're saying their source of funding
is illegal.
Is illegal.
Yes.
Not that they shouldn't be funded.
Yes.
They'll be funded
let us first and foremost appreciate that. So that's why I said to you, what should have happened is that they didn't declare the councils illegal.
No. They didn't say they were declared illegal.
They declared their funding
illegal.
Their funding source.
Yes.
Not
illegal.
their funding. Illegal.
Yes. Yeah. So because the funding source tend to now make them local government.
Thank you. So
that's the argument.
Beautiful. So all of us agree with this. That's why I said to him, please go to this part of this constitution. Let all of us get on the same page.
Yeah, we are on the same page now.
I think all of us are on the same page now.
We are all on the same page. Because what I got from that is that anywhere where there's ambiguity in this constitution, or you are reading it, you don't understand it.
Thank you.
The Supreme Court will help you understand it.
You see, that I said to him, please read it down.
Doc, if you watch, each of the area councils and the FCT are presenting their budgets to National Assembly. The committees in the House of Reps and the Senate oversighting FCT. All right? Now, you ask yourself, what will be the role of the chairman of Abaji local government? What are the role of the councillors elected there? Because
the National Assembly is the legislative arm of the local government.
Of the area council. So why are we now going to create jobs for those who are not asked to have any job in the constitution? Like I said, those who brought FCT to Nigerians made it that it's a home for all Nigerians. It's unfortunate that today there are some gang up to make it another state so that it could be added to the north to make them about 20 states, which is unfortunate. They have to come back to the National Assembly and put it before Nigerians. The same way they have said that there should be no other state from the southeast. All right? They cannot claim the one that belongs to all of us. FCT belongs to all Nigerians. All right? And that's why it's being governed by the president who appoints the minister. And the laws are being made by the National Assembly where the 469 of them sit.
I think, sir.
Okay.
Sorry, Benga, just a minute, sir. I think what let's not lose focus of what this has shown us. Is the first and foremost, this constitution what we're talking about was a constitution that was handed over to us by the military. It's important we get that. This local government reform that we're talking about, everybody is celebrating, was actually initiated again by the military. I think what has happened here is that what Ngozi has been able to show, sorry, sir, with due respect, is that our constitution is very, very defective. And subject to, I am not a lawyer, Oga is, and probably that's why he's being
he's also a lawmaker.
A little bit careful in trying to now chew the thing as it's written. Because is in law. There's a story of Rotimi Williams standing in court for 4 hours to interpret and.
With Chico Fodile. That was
And
1984.
For 4 hours.
Whether and means whether it's conjunctive or disjunctive.
Thank you. So you cannot just take this thing that Ngozi has read now on its face value. But I think what we can take away in holistically is that there is some very structural defects that needs to be corrected in our constitution.
Good.
I think that's the message we shouldn't lose.
That's why I've asked.
But for me, I think this country has gotten to a point where I keep telling people this, that the whole brouhaha of north-south, east-west dichotomy does not exist anymore. Me and you come from the east. You know and I know it. Our governors don't know who we are, won't know who we are, does not respect your opinion. So that you're fighting for an extra state for the eastern region.
You are fighting for somebody.
You're fighting for somebody's pocket.
For a fiefdom to be created for somebody.
So I'd rather fight for Abuja, where I have a home, where I live, and until we begin to get to that point where we're beginning to see Nigeria. You see, the northern caucus thing is no longer there. The eastern caucus thing ceased to exist.
So you agree with the CBN governor that they should now be asked out?
Yes, let's come back to the real issues here.
For me, I think the worry should be whether the local governments are being run in the manner envisaged by the Constitution. The issues of funding, especially as it relates to the area councils, for me, would be addressed by looking at whether, up to this present time as we speak, because from the beginning, even if you are not there, you can imagine the system why the area council were merged with the local governments as it related to revenue allocation. But the Supreme Court, as we have said, has spoken. And to my mind, that is the law for Nigeria for now.
It should be given effect.
Yes, it should be given effect. So our worry that would be dealt with.
Okay.
Therefore.
But if it has not been dealt with since 2002, do we trust that the 7th National Assembly will be able to bear that cart?
No, you asked...
it's not his problem. It's not the public office. He didn't swear by this constitution to obey and defend the constitution. You did.
Benga.
You did. When I say you, I don't mean you as a person. I mean you as a member of the House.
Before we got here, sorry, sir. Yes. Before we got here, we dealt inconclusively with the issue of allegation.
No, morality.
Morality.
The issue of
morality.
The issue of allegation.
No, morality.
If you allege immorality on me, yes, you still need to prove it.
But once you get an indictment, let me say what we said, sir. It's important Nigerians know this. We were talking about people in public office getting an indictment, and who have opinion that the moment you're a public officer
and you are indicted,
and there's an indictment,
not convicted,
thank you.
Morality has been asserted.
That's it. That was the argument. And we're saying that you do not have the moral justification to sit in our hollow chambers and answer honorable or distinguished. I will mention one or two names I'm not going to call on air.
I watched a program this morning.
On this station?
Yes, on this station, of a gentleman who was needlessly indicted. He was needlessly indicted. And by the system, the EFCC, everybody.
Administratively.
Okay? He has to go to court.
And my understanding from that is that indictment came simply from the fact that he had an ambition.
Yes.
To serve.
Yes.
And, for me, we're battling with that. And here we are. And my understanding of the Nigerian law is that suspicion in itself, I suspect you, I accuse you, that accusation has to be proven.
Unfortunately, as a lawyer, you also know that the state cannot do any wrong. The best you can get is to get your integrity restored. You cannot do more than that.
Benga, sorry,
isn't that correct?
The gentleman in question is orderly. Or did he want to come? No.
And he got his credibility restored.
He was on air this morning.
Yes, and he got his credibility restored.
The moment they indicted him, he said, okay, fine, no problem. I give up. And he congratulated, according to him, the person they said was clean. But what did he do?
He went to court.
What are we talking about? That is morality.
His credibility restored.
That is what we're talking about. And today...
That's what I'm saying. That unfortunately, he couldn't do further. He wouldn't do better than that. Because the state cannot do any wrong. Otherwise, you could proceed against the state for false allegations.
He can.
I remember first he didn't run.
He can.
What we're saying is that if he was a governor, probably what we had not done was to resign and say, until I clear my name. That is what we're talking about.
Okay. Let's not allow that.
Honorable, ask me a question. When the issue that what have I done?
Yeah. And I have
and I will tell you
are not a public officer.
Hold on. I have held since 1996. I've sworn to defend this constitution in 1996.
In what capacity?
As a supervisory councillor for education in AIT local government. Okay. I have worked in National Assembly.
That oath has lapsed.
Yeah, no, it has not.
Really?
Yes, because I have a certificate of return from INEC, from NECO there. When I came into the National Assembly to work with Honorable Penis of Glen, when I sent in my papers, the National Assembly returned my paper again. So I haven't seen my certificate of Honorable Homer again. All right? Once Honorable, you remain there because if you have sworn to defend the Constitution, until this Constitution is set aside, all right, you continue to defend it. Just in December, I brought this issue of FCT and getting funds to the attention of the Honorable Member representing Ezini and House Mbise.
That's your constituency?
Yes, my constituency. I brought it to him because I felt that fund being shared here is shortchanging even if it's 10 naira that would have gone back to the two governments in my area. I brought it to his attention and I know that Honorable Nani Ibokwe is already, he promised me that he's working on it. So there's an action. Oh, that's what I wanted to tell him. There's an action. We're not keeping quiet.
All right, let's leave it
there. You know why there will be action? Benga, let me tell you why there will be action. There will be action because I don't know whether it will be right to assume that the National Assembly, individually and as a collective, okay, knows everything that is going on. You see, we have read portions of the Constitution, and we have agreed from the Supreme Court authorities cited up to those issues in the Constitution, the matters of finance that will be dealt with, that the National Assembly will deal with as it relates to the local governments, the provision as to what the State Assembly should do regarding what we agreed was 10% IGR. We agreed, okay? We agreed. The National Assembly does its constitutional duty as relates to the FCT. We passed the FCT budget. But I don't know.
Can't you ask them to stop collecting money illegally from where they are not supposed to be collecting money? If your child, for example, goes to your enemy's house to eat every day, would you not tell your child not to go to your enemy's house to go and eat?
I have already made that point that you need to know that your child goes to the enemy's house to eat before you can.
You need to know first. Every time you see his stomach bulging and you have not fed him, you didn't bother to ask him, oh boy, what is this? No. Or you even see evidence of palm oil on this.
I don't see that because where I live, let me be honest with you. I have a worry as to these issues too. Where I live, I don't live in Asuku, nor do I live in Maitama. Where I live.
Where do you live? I know you also don't live in Yaya.
I live in Gwarimpa. Okay. I live in Guaripa. The stretch to the road to the estate, the Federal and Works Housing Estate, is not good. Yeah. And it has bothered me. Who should be responsible? Is it the area council or is it the FCT? It has bothered me. And if I know,
stretched by the filling station.
Yes, from the filling station to the housing estate. Yes.
FHO.
Yes. And if I know that they collect this money.
No. Honorable, the issue now is that
if I know that the
House of Representatives, where you are, should, as a matter of fact, sit today and demand from the Accountant General why he violated this section of the law. Because I brought it at the attention of Dankwabu when he was Accountant General of the Federation, now a governor. I made a memo to him. He promised to get back to me in 2005. I have the letter. I accosted him at Hilton one day on a program. He told me that he has an ambition, which is what ambition now he's equally. That one does not come.
He's equally being
shortchanged now. Immunity. He has no immunity on this because he cannot deliberately, because he knew he was going to be a governor, mess up a system as a Nigerian federation.
Let me just put one other issue. It's a controversial one, but let's see whether we can just look at it in a very quick way. Unfortunately, this involves your governor.
Yes.
In his capacity as the chairman of the Governors Forum, is insisting, and I assume that that is the position of the Governors Forum, that nowhere where federalism is practiced do you have 3 federating units. And a whole lot of people, experts, have taken him on immediately that cannot be correct. Let me just start with him. Federalism, when you talk of federalism, are you talking of the federal government and the states, or you could have a 3-tier system of government in a federal structure?
Now, first of all, Benga, Nigeria operates a written constitution. In Britain, it's a convention and unwritten. And the former attorney general is here, and the lawmaker now. You cannot operate outside the constitution. Every action of yours must be captured within the 312 sections of this constitution. Anything addition or subtraction without an amendment, as in section 9, is crass illegality. Now, to the comments of Governor Rotimi Amechi and the Governors Forum, they have their right. All right? But this constitution says that we have a federation. I repeat, section 2 sub 2 say that Nigeria shall be a federation, single, that will consist of states and local government. Go to section 3 sub 1, there shall be 36 states. Section 3 sub 6, there shall be 768 local governments. It is based on these principles that they said in section 7, give them elected chairmen and councillors. Okay. In section 123, he said give them fund from the federation account. In section 1 sub 8, give them fund from
I've gotten your answer. Because our time is up.
My simple position is that neither my governor nor the Governors Forum, which it is, has said that local governments should be scrapped.
No, they have not said it.
No, they would not say so. Because as he says, the Constitution has already provided for local governments. What they are talking about, I believe very, very strongly, is the governability of the state vis-a-vis the kind of autonomy we tend to be asking.
You have read the constitutional provision.
If you're acting
are the councils federating units or not?
Yeah.
Well,
you have given me your answer. Yeah,
are they federal? It's a good question.
Yes.
Is a good question.
Yes or no? We need to believe.
No, the Constitution provided for an elected local government.
Does that make them federating units?
But the Constitution itself recognizes what the Governors Forum
so
they are
a federating unit, but
when it puts the control, the lawmaking powers of the local government in the hands of the state.
He did not, please. He did not.
I
disagree. He did not.
No, I tell you.
Yes,
you can't. The yes and no will be between the Constitution, the legislating Constitution, and the 1950 Ibadan Constitutional Conference. That is where you find where the problems of our local government.
Well, we can't go back to 1950.
I said that is.
There's no time for us to do that.
Yes, please
so
not
just
it down.
Help me out here.
Unfortunately, because the northern people wanted full or partial autonomy, is a no. Okay. Because the southern group now wanted some federating unit, is a yes. So that tells you that Nigeria, the conflict that arose, and no conflict mechanism, parastatals, was occasioned. That's why you need to go back to 1950. If you don't understand what happened in 1950, you cannot understand why our local government system won't and will never work.
Okay.
That's my final word.
Let's leave it here. It's an appropriate bus stop for today. We may have to continue tomorrow. I don't know yet. But let's just stop for now because we are clearly out of time. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. This morning, I'll be joining the discussions by Honorable Ngozeka Ihoma. He's Executive Secretary, Legislative Watch. He's also the coordinator of Save Local Government Council Autonomy Group. It's a coalition of some civil society bodies that are clamoring for the local governments to have their way, as the Constitution says they should. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you to Nigerians.
He's been joining the discussion by Honorable Ken Chikere. He is a member of the House of Representatives representing Port Harcourt Federal Constituency 1 in the House of Reps. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. And of course, Dr. Emeka Okengwu is a development and management consultant. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I think where we stopped yesterday was whether local governments are part of the federating units.
Yes.
And I think that was the
Yes,
point
and I said, yes, sir. And I said what it is we needed to do was to do a little bit of, roll back a little bit into history. Because you see, probably it's a good thing I'm actually trying to set the pace. Because when I'm able to give you this perspective now, it might really throw more light on what the issues are. Remember that, let's look at Nigeria from three broad perspectives. What you can call a pre-colonial era, where you had in Nigeria then some part of Nigeria that was stateless, and some part of Nigeria that had some structured administrative patterns that could be likened to states. Some of these places, like the Sokoto Caliphate, the Kanem Borno Caliphate, were Islamic theocracies. Some other ones, like the Benin Empire, the Oyo Empire, and the Igala Kingdom, were traditional kingdoms. But when you now come to the eastern region, they were like stateless, as it were, because they didn't have any structured, So when the British people came in, we started first and foremost with the 1922 Clifford Constitution. That was followed by the 1946 Richardson Constitution. That was followed by the Macpherson Constitution and then the Littleton Constitution. Why do I say this? Because remember yesterday, my last word was that if you don't understand what happened in 1950, you will not understand where we have issues right now. Between 1950, the 1950 or 51 Macpherson Constitution and the 1954 Littleton Constitution, Nigerians actually contributed. Because there was a conference in Ibadan in 1950 and another one, and it was a constitutional conference of ethnic nationalities in London in 1953. So what had happened, what came out of those conferences was that first and foremost, Nigerians agreed that they needed to be, autonomy or semi-autonomy. So between the Macpherson and Littleton Constitution, we now have what you call a federating unit that had some overlay of a unitary government. And that unitary government system now allowed in 1950 for what you called the East, South or Eastern region local native laws. Yes. I think in the Southwest it was in 1952, and I think in the North it was 1954. Let me not take a lot of his time.
Yes.
At this point in time, Benga, what I wanted Nigerians to know is that the local government system, the native authority system, has always been part of our administration. The stranger here is actually the state government or the states. The states came in 1967. And the states came in 1967 because the federal government has sworn that no part of this country was ever going to hold the other. No, hold federal government infrastructure to ransom. Go and read Gowon's speech of May 1967. The primary reasons for establishing the states was to make certain that no part of this region held any other part, especially when, and I think he listed the infrastructure that had not been disrupted by the Eastern Region government. He listed the airways, he listed the railways, he listed the oil facilities. So the creation of the states were supposed to be a mechanism that made certain that no group of persons. So what am I trying to say here? If you understand the politics of what I've just told you now, you will now understand why the state governors or the state governments are actually the pretenders to this throne.
In other words, in terms of seniority, local government administration predates state administration.
And again, sir, on a last note, they are not even constitutional.
Which one is not?
The states. It was created by the military. Except we are trying to, thank God as a lawyer here, except that we are trying to now say that the decrees of the military are captured in the constitution.
Isn't that what the reality is?
No, if the constitution, because Ngozi keeps talking about is not in the constitution. So if we're going to go that way now, the lawyer might help us. The state governments, we have all the states that have been created in this country were created by military fiat. By military fiat. All the local governments that have been there has been there. Remember, on a last note, that there was one, we had what we call chief in council and chief and council. Maybe as we go on, I'll throw more light on it.
Honorable Chikere, is it a case of the last born here trying to lord it over its elders, dictate to what its elders should do, in which case the states which were the latter creation are trying to swallow up the local government administrations that actually predates them? Is that the situation we have there?
It's true, as he said, the local government administrations have been there.
Long before the states.
Long before the states. But you have to appreciate, whose place did the states take? The states are still taking the place of the regions. The states were created out of the regions. So it remains a senior brother to the...
Even though it changed nomenclature?
Yes, it remains a senior brother to the local government. I think that should be that for the moment. And talking about the states, I don't think it would be right to say that they are not constitutional, because if institutions like or acts, the Youth Service Act, the Land Use Act, if they will be given the kind of status they have in the Constitution, then we wouldn't be talking about states, because the Constitution clearly and very well provides for the states.
In any case, I think, isn't there a constitutional provision that decrees that had been existing before will assume the status of acts
that has
as
always,
if they were made by the National Assembly?
That has always been
the tradition.
The 1979 and the 1999. Okay. Now, my own position is this. That
we are looking at what is the status of a federation, because we took it from the views expressed by the chairman of the Governors Forum that in any federation it can only be between A and B, between the federal and the state, never between a three-tier government. That he has never seen anywhere where federalism is based on a three-tier structure.
Well, what he's saying is in practice, but we have a constitution that says we have three tiers of government. We have the local government, we have the state government, and then we have the federal government. Now, the problem we have is in the actual practice. And that was why I said yesterday that up till this moment, nobody, the Governors Forum is being said to be opposed to local government autonomy. And I said the reason why,
but they are
first of all,
they are opposed to local government autonomy.
Yes, but they are not opposed to local government.
Yes, but they are opposed to its autonomy,
yes,
in which case they don't want it to stand alone as another tier of government.
For reason of governability of the state. That was what I said yesterday. For reason of governability of the state.
What will make a state ungovernable if local governments are not tied to the apron strings of the state or the apron string of the governor, as is the reality? Would that make a state ungovernable?
We have agreed. For me, the 1999 Constitution, and as much as the 1979 Constitution, and then the 1999 Constitution, they are not, for me personally, they are not what people say they are, worthless. Military, yes, the military may have brought them, but they are not as bad as they are. But there are certain areas that need some touching. And good enough, the National Assembly, and indeed Nigeria, is looking at further constitutional amendment, because we have the 1999 Constitution as amended. So what we're looking at is further amendment. Let us not bother about that. So therefore, those areas of the Constitution that we think should be touched would be touched in the best interest of Nigeria. Now, when you come back to the issue of local government vis-a-vis the state, some states, I believe Kano has nearly 40-something.
44.
In River State, for instance, we have 23. Would you have 23 units of government inside one state? No. In Lagos, they have done this thing you call development areas. Are they foolish? The people in Lagos, all the people in Lagos, the Yorubas in Lagos, the Hausa people in Lagos, the Igbos in Lagos, the Ikwere people in Lagos, everybody, they are very articulate people. All of them. Okay?
In other words, you cannot have the state if you don't have the local governments, because essentially the local governments make up the state.
The local government make up the state.
They are the components that come together to make up
the state.
Okay, I understand what you mean now by governability, but I'm still worried yet. Honorable Ngozi, will a state, for example, be ungovernable if local governments are autonomous? In other words, since they already have their functions, if they are fully autonomous, will it make a state ungovernable? Because we can stretch that argument that will Nigeria be ungovernable, or has Nigeria become ungovernable simply because governors are not tied to the apron string of the president?
Well, I will start by going back to the issue of autonomy.
What federative is?
And I will ask one person again, I remember here, to take this message to Honorable Bajabi Amela, the minority leader. He is a lawyer. I should go and read the case of Abia, AG Abia, and AG Federation 2006. The issue of federation was clearly pronounced by Kutigi and Mustafa in what they call the connotation or operation of doctrine of federalism. And he talked about, in summary, these are states, independent states that agreed to come together to form a country, a nation. But in Nigeria's case, in paragraph 5 here, it defines what he called unconstitutional structure of Nigeria, and I will read. And it says that the Nigerian democracy is a constitutional democracy based on the rule of law. Where the rule of law reigns, political expediency ought to be sacrificed on the altar of the rule of law, so as to guarantee the continued existence of democratic institutions fashioned to promote social values of liberty, orderly conduct, and development, particularly in a republic founded on the principles of federalism, where power is not only apportioned between the federal and state governments, but also local governments with checks and balances. I will stop here. Like the Honorable Member said, we have a written constitution that have made it clear that we have a three-tier of government. We have the exclusive legislative list being manned by the federal government and the National Assembly. Nobody can move into that area. We have a concurrent list that are jointly managed by the federal government and the state government. Then we have a residual list, which is the fourth schedule, that is exclusively managed by the local government. Now, in the doctrine of covering the whole, the National Assembly can equally make laws, the laws that the state can make, and the one that the local government can make, for the good governance of the entire federation. The same way the state can make the same laws that the local government could make for the good governance of the entire states.
Covering the feet.
Very good. Now, you asked me a question, that if these things are done, if the autonomy of the local government, if they have, because this autonomy we are talking about, my brother, is only the finance. If they are giving their finance, and they use it to develop the communities, will there be trouble? The history of kidnapping in the southeast, the history of oil bunkering in the south, the history of Boko Haram now in the north, right? It's a fallout of the fact that since 1994, to be precise, September 1994, the funds meant for the local governments were hijacked by the federal government. The federal government started this issue of kidnapping and hijacking.
Those responsible cannot be held accountable now.
They will, because
how do you know that?
Because this same pronouncement from this constitution made it clear that the EFCC and ICPC shall go after anybody and everybody.
This constitution was not in effect in 1994. No, we are talking of military men.
We are talking about decrees that have become act of the parliament. We are talking about amendment of the Revenue Act that was made by democratically elected people in 1982, that was amended by Decree 106 of 1992, that has now become the only functional act, revenue sharing formula, for nearly 14 years in our democracy. So any offense,
it enjoys protection.
No, any offense you commit on that act, as long as it has not been repealed, you must pay for it. So EFCC will even go back to start looking for when those laws came. You have been
I'll be looking for Cornell, so Major General, this and that.
I think, sir.
I think we should concern ourselves with the present.
Yes.
How do we make the local governments work? Because the intention of the lawmaker is that we should have a local government that is as a center of development that is the closest to the people.
Yes.
and where the people feel the impact of democracy more.
Yes.
How do we bring into reality that conception of the lawmaker?
Thank you.
That's the worry.
Thank you.
How do we bring it about?
Thank you, Benga. Why I needed for us to start was for us to know
how we found ourselves
where the
here.
problems. When you are talking about federalism, there is what they call true federalism. That's not what we had. That's not what we have ever practiced. It has always been laced with, first and foremost, the military incursions that came with military decrees that became acts of parliament. Good or bad, we've captured them. It has created a lot of confusion in now the operational structures of governance in Nigeria. That is very, very key, and that is very germane. If you don't deal with those issues, the moment anybody refers to the Constitution, the same Constitution all of us are talking about now, Ngozi is reading it from his own perspective and is justified. The state governors are reading it from their own perspective and they are also justified. The National Assembly is also doing the same thing and they are also justified.
Yes.
So
but they are not justified, the state governments are not justified where this Constitution says the system of government that is guaranteed in the local government is that of democracy, and it also spells out who and who can contest the elective offices in the local government.
What I'm saying,
how do we bring that to fruition? Because we don't have that in practice in as many as 500 and something local governments.
It's very
That's the worry.
It's very simple. It's very simple. If you go back to the days you have what we call chief and council and chief in council, when he was talking about the regional governments, you also now had the provincial secretaries. You also now had the district officers. You're talking about the control and command chain. You didn't have executive governors. What you had...
But we still don't have executive governors.
When I'm using
Even though the Constitution says the governors are the chief executive officers of their state. But that doesn't make them
the
chief
executive just simply makes them, probably the chief accounting officers.
Yes.
But what did it's the same thing. But what do we now have? You now have governors who have checkbooks belonging to the states, and they have the powers to hire and fire at will with no recourse to anything or anybody, those who help them to sign these checks. So let us be able to identify what you must be able to identify as a major problem before you can be able to guarantee a local government.
So what have you identified as a problem?
First and foremost, the governance structure has given too much powers to the governors at the state level. So what they have now done is that you have removed them as ceremonial or team players, as you had in the regional system, where you have the governor, the provincial secretary, the district officer, the chief in council or council in chief, and all that, all working together, all reporting to one authority.
But the governors have become titular heads now.
Titular is even understating it. The governors now, because in those days, the governor didn't have a right to start approving or sacking people without recourse to whatever edicts was there. This problem has emerged because we have packed what the military brought in, okay, that made governance easy for them to run, into the constitution and made it acts of parliament. So based on that, now you find out that a lot of these governors are now operating as dictators.
But even at that, Honorable Chikere, even at that, there are clear, distinct provisions of the Constitution as to how the local governments should be administered. A lot of people have argued that perhaps if you remove the issue of funding from the issue of local government, because it's all about the fact that from the federation account there's already something that accrues to the local government. Perhaps if you remove the local governments as part of those to share in the federation account, the governors will have nothing to clamor about. If you like, have local government. If you don't like, don't have local government. Is that a problem? Is it because we have made the number of local governments that exist in the state as an index or indices for sharing revenue? Has that fueled the problem beyond control in any way?
Let me try to answer this question. We have agreed that the local government has been with us from time.
Yes.
Okay.
Pre-independence.
And that I believe we need it, especially in the democracy we're nurturing. So we need it. Now, the issue as to whether it should still get money from the federation account,
yes,
I would say yes. If we want to retain them, in view of what is happening now, wherein even as they get the money from the states, from the federal government, we identified over 500 local governments that are non-elected. my own position is this, and I've said so to Ngozika this morning.
Off camera?
Off camera, that our focus should be, and I said to him what I said yesterday, that I think we should count one before we count two. Our focus should be to return to the Constitution. A return to the Constitution would mean that we'll have these over 700 local governments across Nigeria, and that they are elected. Let us insist on that. Let everybody, and then yesterday when we talked about swearing to the Constitution, all of us Nigerians have sworn to the Constitution. We are all, whether you are in public office or out of public office. So let all of us...
As a media practitioner,
yes.
Even when we have not taken oath, but once we are a media practitioner, there is a provision of the Constitution which clearly gives you a responsibility.
Yes. So let us say that our Constitution should be obeyed. And that therefore, all the local governments, those identified to be local governments, aside those ones that the Supreme Court has, let them be elective, let them be elected local governments. When we get it from there, then we can come back to the second issue, the issue of funds. Of course, the Constitution has already said that certain monies are due to the local governments from both the Federation and from the states, so they have the money. We can now go back and begin to fight for this autonomy, financial autonomy of the local governments. See, the problem with Nigeria is this. For me, we're now talking about local government vis-a-vis the states. What about the federation vis-a-vis the states? In terms of our Constitution, its provision and the practice of the provisions. One of my own objectives, one of the things I wish to achieve as a lawmaker, I believe that a lot of my friends, a lot of my colleagues in the National Assembly will have that view, is to have, well, he talked about true federalism, the physical federalism, because I don't see any federalism being truer than physical. Because when you begin to narrow, I said once that what is the business of the federal government building what they call federal roads in the states? And in how many states have they built those roads? Now, go to Port Harcourt and then identify those roads that are federal and look at their state. Okay?
At the end of the day, the state maintains, and then begins to lobby the federal to
pay back. We have that kind of situation where I come from. So, is that what we want? No. Narrow down the federal government. Give it certain responsibilities as is done elsewhere. And let the states be responsible. Once that is done, the states will have its hands full. The states will look for development areas, as it's called in Lagos. The state will look for local governments, as our Constitution has provided, to help it develop the corners of the state. But if you have a state government that has little or nothing to do, then of course it will begin to look, is it backwards or inwards? And it's a problem.
Okay. Honorable Ngozika, we are trying to look at the issue of money now that is at the root of this evil. Do you also subscribe to that belief that money is the root of this evil that we are talking about? If the local governments don't have so much accruing to them, I'm not so sure that the struggle to control them will be as intense as we have them now.
Well, the Bible said that the love of money, not money. And it is a love of that local government money by the federal and state government. That is the problem. And I'm going to give you an instance now, because we must be practical in whatever we do. In June 2008, federal allocation shared in July 2008. I'll go to Imo State again, because my peculiar is I hold a pro bono for the local governments in Imo since 1998. So I have made their case everywhere. In Imo State, my own local government, isn't it MBC, was given from this federation account 440 48,640,432 naira 81 kobo.
That's in a year.
A month. For the month of June 2008. The total money that was given to Imo State amounted to 11 billion, the local government, so not the state, 11 billion 866 million 991,231 naira 81 kobo. Now, this is the allocation sheet of Imo State. This is that of the federal government.
For the same month?
Now, for the same month. And I'm now reading from the allocation for the month of June 2008. The total money they declared was 2,731,930,881 naira 28 kobo.
As against 11.
As against 11. There's a 9.something billion of excess crude that the Imo State government failed to declare in their jack to be shared to these people. At the end of the day, they now embarked on these frivolous deductions, starting from item 1, the second page from 14 to 22, the third one from 23 to 32, the fourth one from 33 to 47. What did it arrive at? ACTMB, local government, finally got 43,558,562 naira 32 kobo. Out of 448 million, my people got 44.5 million. The last government that was in Imo State never told us where this money is. This happened in every other local government in Nigeria. Now, Benga, the truth must be told. In my paper on Tuesday, I said that there was a rape on the local government system. I know that the rape is not discussed openly because of the nature. But I am presenting to Nigerians the clothes and the part of the woman who was raped
as evidence
to the court, so that the virginity can be restored.
Can you restore the virginity of somebody who's been raped?
That is the job of the EFCC and ICPC. The Supreme Court told them in 2006, before this fraud was committed, that they should go after everybody and anybody that is closest, sleeping and dining with local government fund, because they equally found that the operators of local government are angels.
That means everybody that has governed one state or the other since 1999 will be in EFCC custody, because that's what you,
yes,
like you said, this happened in all the local governments. When
Ribadu made that comment in 2006, prior to 2007 election,
yes,
I'm so surprised that in 2010, 11, when he had an ambition, he recounted from a good job he had done, because I presented a paper to him in the EFCC. Right? I made some of these documents available while he was chairman of the EFCC. The indictments were there, but because of selfishness of Nigerians, he wanted to be a president. But I think the job, the little work he did as EFCC chairman, was even bigger than the accolade of a president. But he marred it by denying that he never mentioned that there were about 29 governors that were being investigated by him. We leave it for him because it's on tape. And I just
the question I ask really is, if we remove this evil, which is that if you don't give money from the federation account to the local government, you just simply share the revenue, the federation account between the federal government and the states.
You can't do that.
Let me
tell you why you can't. First and foremost, I think we should be able to, like I said, get these things and get a proper understanding of the issues that have to do with federal government funding. When you are talking about the GDP, which is the basis of allocations to states and local government, you're talking about population.
Yes.
And when
Honorable, number of local governments.
Yes, when Honorable was talking about the development areas of Lagos State, they were supposed to be local government, which was why Obasanjo withheld their money.
That's not good because they have not complied with the law.
You understand what I'm saying? They were supposed to have been initiated as local governments, and it was all over Nasarawa State, all the states now started having these development areas, when they knew that based on the GDP and the population, which is why we are now falsifying our census results. So if you don't understand what the issues are, it's not as simple as saying, because I tell you what it is. Constitutionally, by this constitution we have loaded with acts initiated by the military. The governors, by law, are empowered to do what they're doing. So until you are able to get the National Assembly...
They're not empowered
by the Constitution.
to withhold monies accruing to the local
they didn't
government.
withhold it. What it is, Ngozi has read out now, are deductions. That's what he read out.
So where do they get the power? Where do they get the power to deduct?
That's what I'm saying, Benga. If you don't have
from local government,
if you don't have a constitution,
the constitution
that allows it.
163. No, it didn't say so.
Go to that section 7 again.
No, not 7. 163.
No, go to 7 now, because the 7 will show you the revenue allocation and what the right of the local governments and the state governments are.
No, the Supreme Court is even clear.
No, let's not go to... let's first and foremost, we're talking about the Constitution here.
Okay.
And until you may amend the Constitution to become effective and functional, without all these little nuances and escape routes here, let's be able to make this Constitution...
I'm looking at the issue of money here.
Yes.
The section of the Constitution that deals with that is the one on revenue, public revenue.
Yes.
Section 162.
Yes.
And if I read from 6, it says each state shall maintain a special account to be called State Joint Local Government Account.
Okay.
Into which shall be paid...
No, go ahead now.
Yes. Into which shall be paid allocations to the local government councils of the state from the federation account or from the government of the federation. Each state shall pay to the local government councils in its area of jurisdiction such proportion of its total revenue or such terms. So it didn't...
read it now,
or such terms as such manner as may be prescribed by the National Assembly.
You see what I'm saying? So first and foremost, like I said, when we read these things in black and white, what you have just read now allows that state governor to take the monies of the local government.
Please.
You're reading it now.
It says on the terms prescribed by the National Assembly.
But the most important thing is that he's allowed to open this special account. You read it.
Yes, I'll pay the money.
Can we first and foremost understand what the man has the powers to do? The second one is a fraud. The first one is he's allowed by the Constitution to do it. That's not a fraud.
Benga.
It is now what they do with this special allocation that now becomes what Ngozi calls the fraud or stealing. But the first thing, the first charge is that until you remove that aspect of the Constitution that allows him to hold the man's money, he's going to hold it.
Okay, so your solution is that monies accruing to local government
should be paid to the
directly to each local government account.
And that it must be amended in the Constitution, because if you don't amend it, you can't do it.
Benga, please.
That's a solution.
The interpretation is here, please. The Supreme Court interpreted that section, please.
What is
Section 162(6). Quoting Nikki Toby now in the literature, he said, Section 162(6) enjoins every state to maintain, it is established, maintain a special account to be called State Joint Local Government Account, into which is a function, shall be paid all allocations to local government councils of the state from the federation account and from the government of the state. The subsection is designed to enforce the provisions of Section 162(3). That apart, the second leg of the subsection enjoins the state to also pay into the state joint local government account contribution of local government councils from the government of the state. In other words, the state joint local government account will be made up of allocations from federation account and from the government of the state. He made another point. Why the legislature involved in Section 162(3), sub 5 and sub 7 is the National Assembly. That involved in Section 162(8) is the House of Assembly of the state. Section 162(6) does not provide for the legislature. The question now is...
There's no question.
Hold on.
There's no question, Ngozi. The situation now is that the governors are allowed
this is a law.
To open an account.
No, this is a law. That was not what
it's not. But you read it, Ngozi.
Benga.
Will the solution be what Dr. Okengwu suggested?
It will be without...
Which is that the monies accruing to the state government, rather than the Constitution saying pay into a joint account, state and local government account. Pay whatever is due to River State. Pay it to River State. What is due
and
to
then hold an accountable.
Pay it to Imo State.
How would the state
whatever is due to Port Harcourt local government. Pay it to an account that is maintained by Port Harcourt local government.
Let me say this.
Would that be a solution?
Let me say this in probably answer to your question. If you look at the provisions of the Constitution, 162 and its subs,
yes,
and look at the interpretation given by Supreme Court, there is clearly no ambiguity. And that is where we are having problem. And that is why I said, look, first things first. Because if you say the love of money is the root of all evils.
Is
and
the
that
root of this evil.
And that therefore, okay, the root of this evil, and that therefore the state governors and then the governors forum is clamoring for, is trying to clip the powers of the local government. Yes, I would say yes to some of the issues that in some local governments, their monies are being taken, by, call it what you like. Yeah. But it will not be the sole reason why the governors are saying, look, we need to be wary of what we do with local government autonomy in the manner being advocated. See, it cannot be all money. Let me tell you the point I want to make. I want to make one single point.
As many as 23.
I want to make one single point.
Demigods.
I want to make one single point. Yes, I said so. But I want to make this point that it could not have been money. If it were money, the chairman of the Governors Forum would not
be the one.
Because in Rivers State, and indeed from the beginning, since 1999, I believe that under Governor Dili, the local governments were supported. Because you see, at that time you have what they call zero allocation. And I think Port Harcourt in particular, which is my local government, was prone to zero allocation. But they managed. And people were happy. And that is the important thing about local government. The young men and women within the system were happy with the local government. And they still are. The chap who was local government chairman at that time is a hero. Now, in our own state, you cannot say it's money when we have taken the responsibilities of the local government like education.
No.
Does the Constitution allow you to do that?
Because you cannot. That is the point. Benga, that is the point. That is the point. That as a state government, as a state government, as a state governor, I sit down and see rotten schools. I went to primary school. I see them and I say, oh, it's not my responsibility. I go around. There are no primary health centers. I say, no problem. It's the responsibility of the local government. At the end of the day, I should ask myself, or the question should be asked, how much of this federal money is there for the local government? And how much of the state IGR is coming to the local government for it to be able to execute these responsibilities? And that is where the issue of governability vis-a-vis comes in. If somebody wants to steal the money of the local government or take them, the Constitution is there. Those who have, who can challenge, my friend is here, he's doing a good job, even in the area he's doing. But my own position is first things first. But that is not to discountenance what he's doing.
Let us correct the issue of primary education. Governor Mechi has been consistent in saying that he took over a responsibility of local government. The Constitution is clear.
Is it not right?
Section 2.
It's not
2A.
Right.
It's not his duty at all.
Section 2A of the first schedule.
It's not his duty.
It's clear. And look at the Supreme Court interpretation.
Okay.
The Supreme Court had interpreted it in 2002. In the same case of Abia, AG Federation versus AG Abia, the resource control suit on the tier of government responsible for primary education. It says, insofar as primary education is concerned,
yes,
a local government council only participates with the state government in its provision and maintenance. The function obviously remains with the state government. Amechi cannot collect 83% of the allocation of local governments in Rivers and use it to pay teachers and does not give them credit and say that he is paid. No.
That's not what happened.
Please, that's what has happened.
No.
That is what has happened.
That's not what has happened.
You are staying in the state. You can see here. It is clear.
That's not what has happened. That's not what has happened. That's not what has happened.
Sorry, Benga.
And the governor has consistently said that.
No, that is not what.
That whereas this responsibility takes the chunk of the allocation to local governments, I have taken the responsibility, but I have left the funding.
It is his responsibility.
The funding of that responsibility.
It is his responsibility. provision of primary education is the
But none of the
state.
elected
It's the
local
state.
government chairmen had come out to say that what the governor said is not right.
Those are his boys.
No, please.
the problem
This
is.
is where we get this thing wrong.
Sorry, gentlemen. I think, like I said,
We're looking for a solution.
beautiful. First and foremost, Benga, let us do a very practical example. You are the anchor of Focus Nigeria. You are held responsible as long as people are on air for Focus Nigeria. You cannot come here now and misbehave, and then they go and bring up Bessie and hold him responsible. So what does that do? You're giving the onus to go and do your research to ask your questions. Nobody has been passing questions to you here. So that means when we go to sleep, you start working. Why? Because you have a clear delineation of your functions and expectations. In the regional system, when you had the administrative officers or regional secretaries, they had their functions clearly spelled out with budgets and programs. At the district officer level, they had their budgets and programs. When me and you were in primary school, you had inspectors of education coming to now supervise and superintend standards. It was done at the local education level. You still have those local education authorities there now. But they are not functioning because they are not being funded. Yes. And as long as you do not give that man the instruments to work, and then make certain that by the time you give in this money and as an account,
Which takes us back to the issue of, do we give the monies directly to the
and
councils?
you can only do that when you
Which
change
will mean an abolition of joint state and local
accounts
government accounts.
and abolition of that section
subscribe
of the
to
constitution. I subscribe with, and
Okay.
that might be the most functional solution.
All right. What Plateau State government, a contribution to the constitutional amendment process. Plateau State government, for example, is suggesting that the first is that the status quo be retained, but to remove any power given to the federal government or national assembly over local government, as it's supposed to be strictly a state affair. The alternative, which they are suggesting, is that the other option, which is preferred, is giving this constant tinkering with the local government. The alternative is to remove local government administration from the constitution completely. Where do you stand?
First,
we have three now.
On the first issue,
Do we give the money directly to the councils?
If
no joint state and local government account.
That will be a burden on the. That will be a burden. That will be a burden on the.
How will it be?
How will be a burden when they have programs they can defend?
The state. That is to say that what that means is that the federal government will disburse money directly to the local governments, the over 700 local governments,
yes.
And then that the state government, and that the state government will disburse their own.
Separately.
Well, in view of the when you take it from the fact that in certain states money is withheld.
All right, we just have to end it there.